conveyance of conservation easement deeded on 2 parcels located on Patty Hill Road, map 10, lot 3, and lot 3-1, and 5 parcels located on Page Hill Road, map 11, lot 1, 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, and 1-6 to the Piscataqua Land Conservatory. The easement will consist of land protection, the Harry Brook Territory Marsh, a designated prime wetlands, conserve working farmland, and preserve an important view shed along the John Stark Scenic Byway. We have a motion on, or comments for that?
Well, just some quick comments. I mean, this has been presented, of course, in detail at our last meeting. It's been presented before the Select Board and the Planning Board, but just a brief summary, because this is a public hearing for someone who may be seeing it for the first time. This is farmland that's on Route 13 as you're approaching Dunbarton to Goffstown. You go up on the hill and you get big, beautiful farmland on one side, which was previously protected with an easement. On the opposite side is where we're working on this project, as well as the corner of Page Hill Road and Patty Hill Road, where there's large open hayfields in that area. I won't repeat all the lot numbers that were already recited in the opening statement. Just briefly, what are the benefits of doing this? We are protecting one of our prime wetlands, and it is one that was rated in the prime wetland study as being of the highest quality for wildlife habitat and conservation value. And the name of that wetland is the Beaver Pond Harry Brook Tributary. It's an awkward name, but that's what it is. That eventually drains off into a tributary that finds its way down to Harry Brook. We're also protecting some prime farmland soils, particularly in those hay fields, the corner of Patty Hill and Page Hill Road. That's prime farmland soil, which is hard to come by in New Hampshire, anywhere in the state, and so always valued. And it'll be kept as working fields going forward in perpetuity. It won't be lost and covered over, developed over, paved over, whatever. And we'll also be keeping that opportunity to have a working farmland, because it is a working farm. It is, a productive part of our local economy, as well as helping in the efforts to keep, food production local, which is also very important. And on top of all that, we have coming through Goffstown the General John Stark Scenic Byway, which travels up through the village through Route 13. And this is right in the heart of what is, without doubt, the most scenic part of the entire John Stark Scenic Byway. So we're actually accomplishing a lot with this project, multiple goals. The amount that we are going to allocate towards this from our conservation fund is $50,000. But this is an expensive project because this is very valuable land. The total value of this, between the appraisal value and the cost for the transaction is $924,000. It's approaching $1 million in value. The easement purchase price is a reduction of $325,000 donated by the landowners themselves, because it's a bargain sale rather than going for the full value. And in addition to that, we have revenue from a number of grant sources to pay for this. So there was an LCHIP grant awarded by the state for $200,000. There is an Aquatic Resource Mitigation Grant, ARM grant, from DES, New Hampshire DES, for $300,000. There was a Merrimack Conservation Partners grant of $20,000, a Moose Plate grant of $24,000, and then the other local and miscellaneous private donations of about $5,590. So the $50,000 that we're expending from our conservation fund is being highly, highly leveraged to cover what would be a project we otherwise could not afford to do. So with that in mind then, if there's no further questions, then go ahead and introduce the
I
motion.
actually have a question. I'm just curious, so who is writing all the grants?
Oh, that's actually, thank you, I left out one of the most important statements. This easements will be held by the Piscataqua Land Conservancy. And the PLC staff did the grant applications. They had a new staff member she's done a fantastic job with the grant applications, obviously, because these grants have been awarded. And there will actually be two easements to cover the whole project. One of them is geared towards protecting the farmland, and the other one is geared towards protecting the prime wetland. Because protections on the prime wetland and the wildlife habitat have stricter, there's things that are appropriate to do in the farmland that it wouldn't be appropriate to do to protect that wetland resource. And obviously agricultural practices need to be somewhat buffered from the wetlands. So two different grants so that two different easements so that different terms can be applied to the different areas on the project. And both easements will be held, and stewardship will be performed by the Piscataqua Land Conservancy.
Well, it's wonderful we have the PLC to be partners with.
And David, Goffstown would hold an executory interest?
Yes, and that's part of that will be in the motion to release the funds. The requirement of when we use money from our land conservation fund is that the town receives an executory interest in the grants. And so what does that mean? It means that basically it's a backup. If for any reason whatsoever the PLC somehow wasn't able to perform their duties or didn't perform their duties, not that we would ever expect that to happen, but if it ever did, then the town has the right to step in and assume control of the easements and see to it that they're enforced and administered. And we're not the only ones that will get an executory interest. All the state agencies that put money into this, also the LCHIP group and the and DES will also receive similar sorts of interests.
Okay, do we have a motion?
We have to hold a public hearing.
You have to open the public hearing.
Yes.
Yep.
See if there's anyone wants to
Comments.
speak on it.
Do you want to speak on this? Or do you want me to?
I just spoke on it, you have to open it
You
for
have to open
public
up the
comment.
public hearing formally.
They have to- But anybody at the public wants to speak on this? I thought it was a public hearing. Guess you want. Okay,
So now I gotta close it.
Yeah, see,
now we close the public hearing.
Okay, so I will make a motion. I move in accordance with RSA 36-A:5 that we vote to approve the release of an amount up to but not to exceed $50,000 from the Goffstown Land Use Change Tax Conservation Fund for the purchase and administrative expenses of conservation easements on map 10, lots 3 and 3-1, and on map 11, lots 1, 1-3, 1-4, 1-5, and 1-6. The easements will be held by the Piscataqua Land Conservancy. Release of the funds is subject to the easements containing an executory interest granted to the town of Goffstown.
I'll second.
Second, Susan second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Okay,
Thank you once again, David, for your
Yeah,
work on
thank
this.
you.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Great.
Nice work.
Okay, next we have review and plans on map 35, lot 52. Request for relief of the outer 50 feet of the 100 wetland surface conservation district buffer for proposed to razor and rebuild a single-family home that will be approximately 68 and 71 feet from Glen Lake. A designated surface water, whereas a 100-foot setback is required The property is located at 142 Elm Street, owned by Kathleen Ann and Surratt Eriks, Zone Residential 1. I know we have plans. Someone speak on it, just state your name for the record.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm Joe Wickert, and I'm the surveyor that's working with Kathleen and Jordan Illich, who are in the audience this evening. They own the subject property. To my right is Aaron Wexler, who's the wetland scientist who worked on the report that you have in front of you this evening. So this property has been in the Barnard family since, I think, 1978. And Kathleen and Sean live in the current 142 house with their children. And the proposal is to remove that house and build a larger house in place of that. So these lots were created by a 1968 subdivision plan for, I think, the Glen Lake Campers Association. Lot configurations are very odd. They got a lot of bends and twists and things in them. In 2022, the Bernards were working on some estate issues, and my office did a lot line adjustment plan to actually move the line between 142 and 144 Elm a little bit to the east, so the bulkhead wouldn't be over the lot line and the building would have more of a setback. So because we did that in 22, we're subject to the 100-foot wetlands buffer to the water. And so that's why we're here. We went to the Zoning Board of Adjustment last month and we got relief for the side yard setback, but the planning board has jurisdiction over the water setback, and I guess before we can go to the planning board, we have to come to this commission and get a recommendation, or you have to give a recommendation to the planning board. So, you know, in the narrative, we kind of went through everything and tried to explain the intent of what we were looking to do. We have actually pushed the house back a little bit further off the water than what was presently there. Was originally, the existing house is 66 feet. You know, we go to 68 feet at the worst point. It is a larger house, but there's not a huge increase in the amount of the building and the setback. So the current house has 1,075 square feet in the setback. The new house would have 1,120. So it's a 45 square foot increase into that 100-foot buffer. And, you know, I think some of the advantages that we would have, this layout would have, is it comes with an attached garage. So the cars would be undercover. Should there be any fluid leaks or whatever, it's less likely to get into the lake. We are also looking at, currently the 142 and 144 they share the same septic system. So as part of this, we would have a new state-approved septic system. We'd push it a little bit further towards the road, a little bit further to the water. It would be state-approved and would be sized to cover the proposed new house. And it'd be an individual one, not shared with the Barnard's residents. So I think that covers just a generic overview of the narrative. I can have Aaron speak to the report for a little bit, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
All right.
The only thing is the driveway is going from a gravel driveway to a paved driveway, is that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Good.
David?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, so the new septic system, I'm sure that'll be a good thing, but the house that currently shares the existing septic system, what's happening with them? Will they still be using the current
No.
septic? or-
As part of this, should this go and get approved, we'd put a separate system for that house towards the road also.
It'd also be moved towards.
Right,
the
so
road
there would be
and
two new
up to date
septic-
standards.
Correct, yep. There'd be 2 new septic systems.
Thank you.
And that one would be located within the 100-foot buffer.
No, that one will be located, it'll be further away, so it will
Okay.
not be. Yep.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, to clear my conscience, we received a memo last meeting about the lake and the dams. And I just feel that we need to say that there's a possibility, I'm sorry, but he's building it on the lake, and I don't know if this is important to have the view of the lake, which may no longer be. They're saying the dams in New Hampshire are in all very bad disrepair, and it doesn't look as though a lot of them will be repaired. And our Goffstown got a notice that in the future, that's going to be we probably won't have that, so this will draw down to a stream or a river?
River.
A river.
Well, if I may, I mean, it's thoughtful of us to make you aware of that, but it's buyer beware.
Well,
If you're gonna buy a house that's on the water now, and it may not be on the water 10 years from now,
that's what we're saying.
just, but
No, he's
make you
building it.
aware of it in case you don't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So part of the rationale for the improvements is that the cars will no longer be parked in the driveway, they would be parked in a garage. Is that-
Yes.
Did I hear that correctly?
Correct.
Incorrect.
Yeah, personally, I don't see how that is any kind of an advantage, because there's still nothing to prevent them from parking in the driveway. And as a matter of fact, I'm sure they probably will. If not the owners, guests, or somebody would still be parking in the driveway. So, has there been any design elements to divert the runoff from the pavement and treat it somewhere? I haven't had that much time to look at the plan, so I thought it'd be quicker to just ask you that
So-
question.
One of the things I guess that's unique about this is I can't make my shoreline permit application until I know I have my local permits in hand, right? And I wasn't aware that we couldn't get this relief from the zoning board. So, we had to do this in 2 steps. We went to the zoning board for the side yard setback, the planning board for the front yard setback. So we have not gone through and graded everything, but if you look at the topography on the land, the existing house sits on the top of a hill, right? And so there will be, most likely the plan is to remove, some of that hill is during the construction, but the driveway is not going to be, the surface flow from the driveway won't be going into the water. It's going to be directed back just because the house and the garage slab are going to be higher. So, I don't think we have a single-family house now. We're going to finish with a single-family house. There really isn't going to be any significant increase in number of vehicles because we already have one to start. So our position, or my experience has been, you might be right that no one can regulate who's going to park in the garage, but certainly one of the reasons why we're having an attached garage is during the winter and rain and things like that. Some people might, and there's really nothing we can do to regulate that. We do think we've tried to fit everything in the best we can on a lot that really isn't designed to meet the current setbacks.
I have a question, Joe. Is the whole house within the 100-foot, or is it does the 100, because it doesn't really show the 100-foot?
There's a portion of the back of the house that's outside of it, but not by much. But the existing house is in the same predicament,
Okay,
right? And if we hadn't moved the lot line in 2022, this property would have predated the ordinance and the 100-foot setback wouldn't apply.
Right.
yeah.
Does the existing house have a basement?
That I don't know.
It has a dirt basement. It's essentially a camp.
So it's just a kind of a,
Crawl space?
yeah,
Yes.
so you're putting in a full basement now, it looks like?
Yep.
So is part of the garage outside of the 100-foot buffer?
Probably the doors,
Okay.
a portion of it. It's,
But most of it's all in the hundreds.
Well, so,
Because he's showing the 150-foot there, and he's showing where it ends. I was just
So
trying to figure
this
out
is the
what
100-foot, this is the 100-foot line right here,
Okay.
and it kind of, it's exaggerated because of the text, but it's in there. So, I don't know what that is. 1/3 of the building is outside of it, 2/3 are in it.
Okay.
And under the current one, this is you know, this is the same line, so there's certainly a higher percent of area of the house. It's a smaller house, but there's a higher percent of the area in the buffer.
So some of it has been pulled out of the buffer
Yes.
by this.
Yep. And we tried not to make it any closer to the lake than, you know, than what exists today, correct.
Also, as far as the driveway is concerned, right now, there's not really a structured driveway out there. If you look at at least one of the photos that I submitted in the report, it's the whole width is dirt. You know, with this proposal, there'll be a structured driveway, more vegetation around it. Right now, there's a small potential for runoff to go towards the lake. It would have to cross onto lot 53, and it would go down a fairly long path through the grass before it would reach the lake, but there is some possibility with the placement of the new driveway and I'm assuming proposed lawn around the edges of it. I think it would actually be a lower likelihood of anything getting to the lake there.
And the whole driveway's not within the 100 feet buffer.
Correct.
No, it's not.
But the impervious area is increasing by 1,420 square feet.
Right, but that's within the limits of the shoreline protection area, not the 100-foot buffer.
Right, I'm just noting, making sure.
Correct, but that's why we have the draft on that table. So once should this application be approved by the planning board tomorrow, then we would finalize our submission to the shoreline group, and those numbers will become final and we can finish everything up. Should the planning board or this commission decide they'd like something different, then we may have to amend everything and redo and change those numbers. But there is going to be an increase in impervious, but the increase in impervious will be in the 50 to the 150 of the shoreline protection area, not the 100-foot wetlands buffer that we're here for this evening.
Is it marked on the plan? I'm missing where that line is.
Which line's that?
Where the buffer line is now.
Yeah, the 100-foot line.
Yeah, that's why I asked. He showed it on the plan up on the easel.
So,
Yeah.
this line right here.
Yeah.
It's up here.
What is the drainage situation along Elm Street? Is there a ditch along there? I mean, you can't really see by looking at this,
It's not like a really well-defined one, no.
because I'm, just wondering with the impervious paved driveway with a slight slope towards that, or any other runoff coming off the sides of the driveway, maybe heading in that direction, how is the,
So the test
how will
pits,
that be handled by the street?
I think DPW has a requirement that we can't dump any water into their road. So typically there'd be a little break about 10 feet away from the edge of pavement line. So we'd have a little dip and the water would kind of go off to the side and run parallel to the road. When we dug test pits, the site's pure sand,
Yeah,
right? So
don't doubt that.
there isn't any water that comes off of the road or whatever is going to be absorbed well before it gets to the lake, so.
And that's something that we really have to think a lot about, especially going forward, anticipating larger storm events.
Anybody have any other?
I mean, you're in a good situation with the sand, for sure, but there, maybe you might need some kind of, help me out here, Collis. Something to deal with runoff from the drive that will be impervious.
So I think as part of your local process, we're going to end up meeting with DPW for the driveway application. And usually, Eric will have a list of things that he wants and things like that. So those are, my experience has been the DPW will tell us where they want the curb cut, how they want it to break, and that's how it's going to get constructed. So there should be no, that we're not going to be dumping a ton of water on Elm Street just because the town doesn't allow that.
Do you have any other questions?
Well, can we be a little more succinct? Why is it you can't meet the 100-foot? Just,
I know.
I mean, that's the thing that we wrestle with.
Mhm.
I hear you saying,
So-
well, we're making it a little bit better here, we're making it a little bit better there, but really the question in front of us is, why not 100 feet?
I know, there's that no.
So,
And I'm not saying you can't, I'm just
no, I
just trying to
understand.
make.
So this is the 100-foot line right here. right?
Yep.
Okay, so the way this lot line works is, you know, at 30 feet, the width of this lot is about 50, 55, 54 feet. We have 15-foot setbacks on either side. That would make us 20 feet to here. We would have to somehow have a house that fits in this little envelope and 22 foot wide or whatever, which basically is gonna make it more difficult for our septic purposes and access, and it's gonna push us further back from the road, which is one of the items that the owners would prefer. I mean, currently, they're living right here, and Kathleen and Sean, I think, have been there for 8 or 10 years. They only purchased it a year ago, but it was owned by her parents. So, you know, we felt that this was sort of a good compromise. We tried to fit it in. You know, under this zone and the current ordinances, you know, we're supposed to have 1 acre and 150 feet of frontage. And, you know, we increased it to 85 feet and we only have 0.4 acres. So it's difficult to make all that fit on a lot with current setbacks.
Yeah, and they did go and receive a variance for the setbacks that they're showing here, so
And,
it
you
would
know,
infringe on the
if we
setbacks
had,
more.
if we hadn't have done the lot line adjustment, we could have gone closer because the setback wouldn't have been applicable because it was prior to 98 or 99, whenever your rules are. So we did the lot line adjustment in an attempt to resolve some encroachments and for some, you know, for estate planning purposes, so, you know, if somebody were to pass or whatever, there wouldn't be an encroachment for the next owner. That's what, you know, fired this up to here. But, you know, that's where we are.
So, without putting words in your mouth, so I think what I hear you say is based upon the setback requirements, the building envelope that's left isn't sufficient to move it any further back. Is that kind of
Yes,
summary of it?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not, the envelope's not large enough.
On the
Yeah,
line
got it.
for the proposed size of the house.
There's no space.
Got it.
Do we have any other concerns, questions, comments?
Well, dealing with these older lot configurations in these situations, of course, is always very tricky. I am happy, though, with the fact that there's some improvement over the existing conditions, given that, I mean, the 1 or 2 feet back further from the lake is like, well, that's in the right direction. It's not, that's not anything to get too excited about. However, it's thinking in the right direction. I think probably the biggest benefit, from my perspective, is the new septic system.
Right.
Because we're right here on the lake, and, you know, some of those I know in the past in that area have been questionable and had to have been replaced. So having a new, up-to-date septic system going in has got to be a good thing.
So Joe, I see there is consideration for a stormwater feature to deal with the roof runoff.
Correct.
Into a dry well.
Yeah, we're probably looking at dry wells, and, you know, once we get these approvals, we'll make that final submission to Shoreland, and I'm pretty sure you get a look at it as part of that as well.
So we can't get the driveway into that dry well because of topography or grade or some reason?
I would think it's more of a capacity thing, but you know, we can look at, you know, we can look at some stone line ditches along the driveway. That's, you know, that's fine.
That would help.
I have a question. Is that a stone wall, or is this gonna be
It looks like roofing.
I'm just, oh, where is it? Here, oh, there it is. I was looking on the back pages.
Good question.
Silt fence, proposed silt fence.
Yes,
Ah,
that's-
okay.
yeah.
I didn't know whether that was gonna be a permanent structure.
No, that's just
coming
for,
in.
during construction and
Okay.
to make sure there's
Okay.
nothing that goes in the
Looking
water.
for that, that's, I was looking down here, because this usually over here. It's there, okay.
Any,
And is there, I guess the other question I'd have about tree removal on the site. Obviously, there can be nothing in the 50-foot off the lake. I mean, there are some trees in that 50-foot setback.
Right, but all our construction would be on the
In-
50-foot wooded
Between the
buffer.
50 and 100, right,
Right.
right.
Yep.
So what looks like, what somebody thought was a stone wall, that's actually silt fence?
Silt fence, right?
Right, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd actually thought it was a retaining wall or something there.
No, it's just to make sure during construction, there's nothing, because we're on the hill, it drops down another 6-8 feet to like a little road that runs parallel, or a little trail that runs parallel to the water, then it drops down again, so we just want to make sure that nothing gets into the lake.
So Joe, could you use a silt sock on the property instead of silt fence?
Sure?
Not a big fan of silt fences.
On the upside, it's a sandy site, so it's slightly easier to get it towed in.
True that.
Improving that lot life. They're gonna live there.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know.
okay, do you have any comments, a motion?
I guess I could make a motion.
Can I just clarify, so you're
Sure.
agreeable to add some infiltration trenches along the driveway, did I hear that, Joe?
Yes.
Or Aaron? Yeah.
What we'd probably like to do, without thinking about everything through now, is either on, I don't know what that is, the north or west side of the driveway, or if we stay on the south or east side of the driveway, we got to push it closer to the street to make sure we have the separation to the leach field.
Okay. Did we have some things we wanted in a motion that people had mentioned? I know Carlos mentioned some things. Do we have?
They gotta make the motion, they can write it, say it in the
He
motion.
said, make the motion and then add those.
Well, yeah, if they wanna include
Well,
it.
we can discuss what things.
To me, I think the biggest improvement that could be made would be the infiltration trenches along the driveway. So we could incorporate that into a motion, right?
Okay.
And you want, the silt sock.
Well, if it's sandy soil and, I trust their best judgment, if silt fence will work, that's
Scratch that
okay.
one
It's-
out.
We've all seen the horror stories with silt fences.
I mean, I like to give people an option, just because,
Yeah, I get it.
the good silt sock is pretty pricey. Not that they need a lot of it here, but I usually tell
Go ahead.
everybody to use silt sock, save themselves headaches, but it's up to like $900 a pallet at this point, so pretty pricey.
When we make a recommendation for a variance, I always feel like it's important to say, why are we doing this?
Well, it's not a variance, she's going to
Well,
plan
Just going, we're recommending.
Recommendation to planning
for the waiver.
for waiver, I'm sorry.
Yep.
The word was waiver, not variance.
Yep.
Regardless. Whenever we make a recommendation favoring something like that, I think it is important to say why. And in this case, I believe the reason why is that it should be an improvement over the existing conditions. And probably the biggest factor of that is having a new septic system, a new up-to-date and modern septic system. So any motion that we make, I feel needs to state why we recommend the waiver,
Okay. So,
so that we can take the whole ordinance seriously.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest improvement. I think the consideration of runoff from the driveway is the other one, so that's a secondary improvement on the
Yeah.
site.
okay. So,
the infiltration trenches along the driveway.
Plus, they're already proposing infiltration for the downspout.
Right, I see that.
You can add that to the third reason.
Downspout?
From the gutters, roofs, I mean,
Yeah. Infiltration of
roof runoff.
non-permeable roof runoff.
Okay.
Do you want to make a motion or did Colin? You're still adding?
Metal roof or shingles? Shingles.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion. These are all written down. I'll make a motion that we approve this request for the relief,
Recommend.
recommend that we, for the relief of the outer 50 of the 100-foot setback. And the reason, I guess she's got the reason.
Yeah, stated.
Improvements of the lot itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the infiltration trenches along the driveway.
Driveway.
And another improvement is the infiltration from the roof runoff.
And the new septic system being an improvement.
That's in the motion.
That was in the motion.
I second the motion.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah, just seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
Abstaining?
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will pass on the comments to the planner tomorrow for the meeting.
Great.
Tomorrow
Thank-
night.
Thank you.
Now, we have Public Service of New Hampshire. Eversource Energy easement owners. Conditional use permit request for a proposal to replace overhead electrical utility structures along the existing it's J 114 transmission line located within the wetland surface wet water conservation district. The easement area is located off of Elm Street, map 5, lot 16, 18A, 19, 19-1 and 20, and Goffstown Back Road, map 6, lot 26-1 and 79. Zone residential, agricultural, wetland, and surface water conservation overlay district, and the flood hazardous overlay district.
Just for clarification, the other plan is not this. It's something I'm bringing up after. Yeah, you just have the plans that were mailed to you. They don't provide big ones for the
They just-
CUP.
Okay, just state your names for the minutes.
Sure thing. I am Connor Madison from GZA.
Jeremy Fennell, Eversource Energy.
To start this off, does everybody have a plan in front of them? I printed out extra just in case.
They had them.
I see a couple packets in the air.
Right.
Perfect.
Although it's only 3/4 inches thick.
I know.
Usually we expect 7/8 inches.
It's the town requirements, I swear. So we are here for as you stated, a conditional use permit for upcoming maintenance project on the J114 transmission line, which cuts through town from Greg's Lake, Gregg Substation down to Rimmon Substation, which is off of, I believe it's Riverview Park Road. This conditional use permit is for temporary wetland impacts throughout this project. I'll give a quick overview of the project and then I'll go into the permitting. Feel free to chime in with any questions on the way. So for this project, we are proposing a structure replacement for 32 structures on this transmission line. This would be a wood to steel structure replacement. We'll start out with phase 1, so that's more of a phase 1, so wood to steel, 32 across about 11 different access points from Mast Road all the way down to Howard Park Road. It's the same work we've seen before. Maintenance, wood structures are deteriorating, there's holes, cracks. We're proposing to replace those with steel. There will be no tree clearing on this project. The right-of-way won't be expanded at all. It'll be kept as that 100-foot right-of-way that it currently is cleared and maintained. As far as we do have a kind of phase 2 portion of this project, it's an optical ground wire replacement. So it's the top line on these poles is just getting replaced throughout this entire transmission line. It's just a little communications wire. It's a substation to substation communication, so if something happens, say in the middle of the line, that communication wire can pinpoint where that incident occurred. There is already a line up there, so we are just replacing that throughout that. But that will be done once these structures are turned into steel. To go through the permitting, we have a couple state permits that are currently pending. We have a statutory permit by notification, and that's for those wetland impacts, the temporary wetland impacts. We also have an uplands disturbance permit. It's an alteration of terrain permit application that is also still pending. We did submit that to the state, I'd say about 40 days ago. Both of those permit applications require heavy coordination with Natural Heritage Bureau and New Hampshire Fish and Game for any protected species, including plants, turtles, snakes, the whole gambit. For Natural Heritage Bureau, we do have a plant survey scheduled for June on the southern end of this line. And for Fish and Game, we do have a couple recommendations that we have agreed upon. It'll be a no disturbance 50-foot buffer on vernal pools is one of the bigger ones. And then the other big one, besides all the usual best management practices they recommend, is that we're going to sweep every wetland prior to installing timber matting by a trained individual. That's been a new one by Fish and Game that they've been giving us project after project. So it's becoming a norm, so you'll see that more and more as throughout the years. We will be following all the 2019 Utility Maintenance Best Management Practices manual, and I guess most importantly, this schedule. So this is scheduled for July through, I believe it's through the winter for restoration. Statutory permit by notification, we're not allowed mats in beyond one growing season. So we will be restoring this in the winter of either 2023 or early 2024. I think that's about it. Sorry if I rushed through that, but we can go over the plans as well if we have any questions on those. I know they can be a little confusing, but
Have you done a vernal pool survey yet, or are you doing one as we speak?
yeah, so we did do one. We didn't find any. The only one, sorry, I forgot the page that it's on, would be on page 4. There's a vernal pool that we're staying on the road there. It's a Constitution Road. It's in a tiny little wetland. It's honestly pretty much just a little ditch that is been there for years now and has turned into a wetland and vernal pool, but we put a 50-foot buffer on that, so we hadn't had any report drawn up or anything for that since we are avoiding it.
And no other hits?
No, it's
David?
When you mentioned before about the process, Fish and Game requires you to sweep wetlands. Can you explain in detail what sweeping a wetland is?
take a broom and you just go through that wetland. Yeah, sweep is a term that I often use and don't think about, so apologies for that. So we'll have a trained individual walk out into the wetlands before, so mats are about 4 feet by 16 feet, 4 feet wide. So we'll have a trained individual in front of any matting placements, making sure that there's no turtles. And this is only for active season, so we're making sure that there's no turtles or snakes or any type of animal that's in front of them. And then we'll put the mat down directly after they give the thumbs up and continue that throughout the days.
Anybody else have any questions or concerns, or?
Well, my favorite question is there fabric underlying the mat?
I would like there not to be, because of the waste it creates, but I know we've had that request before. Would you like us to do that this time as well?
We typically ask for that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. Anything else?
You don't do it because of the waste, you mean when you have to pull them out? and get
Yeah,
rid of
it's just not a clean process. I mean, I understand the intent, it just, in practice, it doesn't work out that well. So,
I think Eversource can afford it.
Hmm?
I said,
Yeah.
I think Eversource can afford it.
yeah, it's not the cost, it's the fact that it's like putting a wet piece of paper down and then trying to clean it up in an organized manner, and then there's a lot of waste involved, but that's again, we have our own opinions, so I respect definitely, and we will do it.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Not for me.
Anybody else have any? No? Okay. Need-
Eversource knows the game pretty well.
Again, we need a recommendation.
We need
for-
a recommendation to pass this on. Anybody want to make a motion for the recommendation?
I recommend that we, recommend that we forward this to the planning board, right?
Motion to recommend.
Motion to recommend, I make a motion to recommend, okay. Motion to recommend, forwarding this to the planning board. With the added note that we would like to see matting underneath, as Collis said.
Fabric underneath.
Fabric underneath the matting.
Recommend to approve with the matting underneath.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Susan? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, I'll pass this on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming in.
Might be any pictures. The pictures of them. Do you want me to do this
Yeah.
other plan, or do you want to do that
Yeah.
after? Do it,
I'd love to see
do it
one.
after, the end?
Yeah. Very pretty.
I can do it now, or I can do it
Never
then.
seen one of these.
All right,
And then we'll just, yeah,
then you'll go through the correspondence, and you want to go through the
then we'll
correspondence
just have the,
minutes, and then the gentleman that's here, and
then we
then
have
Adams.
us, yeah, so do, okay, Patty has.
I have something that I added, that the plans are, the deadline to submit for the planning board is different than getting on our agenda. And they're coming in for June 8th for the planning board, so I brought this in, to you. It's the next plan that you're seeing with the blue. So what it is, it's, in the commercial zone, they're proposing a 2-lot subdivision. In the commercial district, there isn't any wetland setback.
Just the house and the barn.
So if they're
Yeah, but no,
proposing
it's-
something commercial that's gonna go in. the
Yeah,
commercial
so
zone.
they're proposing just right now to the planning board as a 2-lot subdivision. They did submit on Monday a conceptual plan, because the intent is for the lot behind, you'll see the second plan underneath, to be a logging business. So with the logging business, I would recommend that when they submit for site plan, come in for a presentation. But I was bringing this to you right now for the subdivision, which is map 3, lot 48, and the address is 210 Daniel Plummer Road. It's actually, you know that big barn you can see from 114?
Yeah, the yellow.
Yeah, that's it.
That-
That's the property,
Really?
yeah. And it used to have like a consignment shop or something in it at one
Yeah,
time.
something,
And then
yeah.
below that is the landscaping business.
Quite a
That's
That's
quite a ways away.
that abuts them.
But,
So-
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
that's-
This abuts St. Anselm's College on 2 sides,
So they want
actually 3
to
sides.
change that into a,
Sub-
So right now, he's just doing a subdivision. What's currently on the lot is the existing barn and a house with an accessory dwelling unit.
Gotcha.
So they're proposing to subdivide it. It's commercially zoned. And the intent is to come back in again with his proposed logging business. You'll see just a single sheet of a conceptual plan. They wanted to present this to planning so they knew what the intent of the property was. And so they will resubmit again for the site plan.
They will come in for the,
Yeah, they'll have to come in for site plan review, but right now they're coming in just for the
They're just
2-lot
going for the-
subdivision.
we just.
So whatever you recommend, I would say you'd want to state when they come in for site plan review, you would want them to come in to do a
So
presentation.
we're just going to be doing the
So we're not
subdivision.
So
taking any action tonight.
if you wanted, I brought it to you so you could pass on comments for the subdivision. I was thinking the subdivision was, a pretty simple subdivision that, I didn't, where it came in so late, didn't come in your packets, I didn't call them up and ask them to come in. And then when they did the conceptual, I just added the conceptual so you could see the intent.
I don't see any wetlands or impact.
So before we get going, Madam Chair, if I could, even though I'm not a voting member, I'm going to step away from this application because I have a professional working relationship with Sanford Engineering and Surveying, and so I don't want to have any image or perception of any impropriety, so even though I'm not a voting member, I'm not going to participate.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll make sure that's in the minutes. Okay, any comments on the,
So I'm not seeing any wetlands, but even, they don't have a separate requirement in the commercial zone.
Right, they don't.
I'm not seeing any on this plan. I just, if you had any comments, environmental concerns with the 2-lot subdivision, and I would also state when they submit for site plan review, you would like them to come in for a presentation
yeah,
at that time.
okay. Does anybody have any other comments right now?
No, I was just curious.
Because I could pass them on to the June 8th meeting if you are able to make comments on what you're looking at for the subdivision. That's the only thing that's scheduled is the subdivision.
Mine have nothing to do with the land or conservation. I was just curious about the farmhouse is going to be changed into like apartment type stuff.
He came in.
Are they gonna own, is the farmhouse property gonna be owning the raw timber material property?
No, the owners are gonna own both lots. He came into staff and met with staff a while ago. And his intent was to convert into apartments, trying to keep the character that we see. And he has a logging business that he wants to run on the lot behind it. And that's what their intents were, as they stated at the meeting.
Converted with the house on the barn to apartments, is that the idea?
Yeah, the barn, they'll convert to apartments.
Okay. Do you have any other comments on this, or concerns, or
Any recommendations?
any recommendations?
No environmental, do you want to pass up
No
no environmental?
Environmental impacts?
Well, given that we're only looking at the
Subdivision.
subdivision.
Just the subdivision?
Yeah,
So
I
we
mean,
don't have comment on the,
As far as the
So somebody
potential
want to make a
future
motion?
business, that will be covered in a separate plan.
Yeah, I
Separate
would recommend they
review.
come in for
For the
that.
sep- yeah,
Because, if it's like firewood, that's one thing. If it's like pressure treated timber, that's another thing,
Well, the only thing is though, both of these are commercial, is that right?
The whole, yes,
The
it's
whole
one lot
property
right
is
now,
commercial.
348's commercial.
So the zoning, there's hardly any regulations affecting zoning and industrial property, right? In terms of wetlands and things like that. I mean, I think they're exempt from so much of that.
Hmm,
They don't have a
Yeah.
setback requirement for it.
yeah.
No,
No,
I know.
they don't.
So in this case, there is no wetlands.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, apparently
I
there is
think
just
running
off the
right
edge of the
along the
property.
highway, there's
right, pretty much.
a drainage, like,
So,
other than that. But
so we
anyway,
have,
So,
The plan shows, and it's kind of out of the boundaries of this, but it shows an old railroad right-of-way. Is that still a valid right-of-way, or is that just where one used to be? What do they mean by old right-of-way?
I don't know, something to research, I don't know if the
Very
rail
old.
will or.
we haven't seen it, been here about 50 years now, or 40-something, I've been, so.
somebody want to make a motion to the
Any
planning board for
comments?
the subdivision? And
We have no
No.
areas of
no
concern.
concern?
No environmental
No
concerns with the,
Concern for the subdivision.
for the proposed
for the
subdivision.
proposed subdivision, okay. Do we add, we would like to come up with a second one to that?
No environmental concerns for the proposed subdivision. Would like a presentation of the site plan when they submit.
Yes, for the second.
Generally, they all come in anyway, but just to state, you would want to see them for the site
Right.
plan.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
Who motion?
Evelyn,
Evelyn motion?
and Susan second,
Okay.
and all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Do you want to do copies now, or just,
Do you want me to do the,
we'll do, yeah, might as well, and then we'll do the minutes at the end, since we,
you mean the one for,
since we get
no.
going, yeah.
So, I don't know if all of you saw your email I sent out today.
looks at
Yep.
it really nicely. What?
Did you guys see the email I sent out today? Okay,
No.
all right.
I mean, I just didn't.
So you have a little past handout tonight.
Yeah.
So, Adam, the Public Works Director, asked me to bring this to you. It's gonna go to the planning board tomorrow. They are asking a recommendation on the land acquisition for a small portion of the property on map 30, lot 46, which is 81 South Mass Street. They are redoing the right-of-way, and they want to add a sidewalk along East Union Street. They're actually even doing some work onto West Union Street too. So they're asking you to support their land acquisition for this small area to be added to the town's right-of-way and to construct a sidewalk. And it's part of the, RSA.
So they're showing some buildings on it?
No, they just
It's
want
an
that,
existing house. It's not a subdivision or a site plan.
just that
It's a
little
land
orange.
acquisition.
See that little orange section?
All
Evelyn?
right, okay.
That's all. They're
Oh,
moving,
the
they're
land
moving
okay.
that.
All right, yeah.
Yeah,
They're
so as
pers-
part of the state RSA 4114A, you need a recommendation from your two land use
Somebody want
boards.
to make a recommendation?
So this, the reason for this is to make an easier turn
Sidewalk.
radius? Well, it said sidewalk.
It almost is gonna make it perpendicular.
So I can,
right?
That's what I'm.
So-
I'm wondering, yeah. Which makes
to allow
sense.
DPW to construct a new sidewalk on East Union Street and realign the intersection with South Mass Street for better truck and bus turn movements.
Right.
I mean,
so
there is
bend
the bus
bend
area
the
that-
road a bit
yeah.
more so it could, that better
Yeah.
Right.
access. could
Make
be-
that
yeah.
access.
It's a terrible,
Yes.
yes, right now, terrible.
I'm amazed that, because the whole bus depot, isn't there like a bus
Yes.
Yes.
down there?
Every-
That's all
right.
these years they've been dealing with that intersection.
Yeah.
When you know,
Now,
the thing is, the traffic is getting heavier.
It's heavier,
and
yeah.
Too, so
Yeah.
it's really tough. I mean, that's a good, I think,
Yes,
improvement.
it's a good improvement.
Yeah,
Okay,
a
we-
needed improvement.
I mean, it sounds like a good improvement.
we have a motion to
but I'm
accept
just surprised.
Motion to recommend to the select board.
the
Can I
recommendation.
ask another question before you go?
Yep.
make a
Don't.
motion? So I understand this is only about this. This is only
Yes,
about this.
just-
But you said the words when you were bringing this up, Patty, something about West Union Street.
Oh,
What's going on
Oh,
there?
I only know this because they're also repaving and they're doing sidewalk work along West Union
They're gonna
too.
move the sidewalk over a bit because they put in those new utility poles on West Union.
And I know because it's affecting some of the people that live along there that, you know, their driveways are now changing how they park. So we have someone that's coming in to, planning to ask for, a waiver of our development regulations and to allow them to have, a bigger area for their driveway, because when the sidewalk gets constructed, they now, you know, the sidewalks are flat.
No,
So they can park, so now this
I-
is gonna make it so
I
they
actually
can't.
saw that recently and saw the
Yeah.
new poles that went in. The old poles are still there, which is confusing. So why are the old poles still there? They just haven't switched the wires over or what?
Oh.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
For Eversource, you mean?
Right, the wires aren't on, maybe.
Well, there's,
I don't know what
they put
Eversource
in,
is.
they, new poles on West Union Street, and they're much bigger, much higher.
Mm-hmm.
They've got three-phase power on
Yeah.
the top of them. The old poles are still there. You know, and it looks like the old poles maybe are just the other utilities like cable and,
I don't know
phone.
what Eversource is doing for, I mean, I'm talking about what DPW is doing for the road.
I understand
Yeah.
that's very relevant to
Okay.
what would happen on West Union Street, because if they're going to redo the sidewalk, it would look like the old poles would have to come out first. So I was just wondering, are they gonna relocate the other utilities onto the new big Eversource poles?
I would assume that's what they're doing,
I
David. You
would
go up
think.
Patty Hill Road, it's all like that. All the old poles are still there, the new poles are in, the old ones are still sitting there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And they might be coming back through after removing them, I don't
assume
know.
that's what they're
I
doing.
would think, yeah.
but
well, somebody
that's-
asked me about it, so that's why
Yeah.
I'm wondering about it.
I mean,
as well.
I can email Adam and see if he
Find out.
is aware of what they're doing.
But that doesn't affect this little piece.
No, it doesn't impact this,
It's
but
the
she
other-
mentioned
right.
West Union, so.
Yeah, only because I knew because of how it's affecting the sidewalk that's
the
being
sidewalk.
constructed on West Union too.
But
It
in the
was
case
nothing
of
but the
West
poles.
Union, the town won't have to acquire any additional right-of-way. Any issues there will be,
If they did, you'd
individual.
then have to come back again with the same request.
okay.
Okay. We have a motion to,
Well, I would make a motion that we recommend to the select board to proceed with this acquisition on East Union Street to improve
with a second on that.
to build a sidewalk and realign the road.
Second? Evelyn? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Correction and acceptance of the minutes from April 26th. I just had a few little things.
Yeah, I don't know who this Newman guy is who keeps interrupting me. One minute I'm talking, the next minute it's David Newman's got some comment. I never saw David Newman at the meeting here, although he seems to make more sense than Neiman does.
So you want them correct, a motion to correct.
There's numerous Newmans in there.
Whether it states Newman
Yeah, from Seinfeld.
to Neiman, okay.
But let me pull out my copy, I think there's my
Do you
some other
have, do you
thing.
have corrections? I
Oh, yeah,
have.
there's one.
Yeah, he's giving corrections right now.
Okay, let him give, we want the ones I have.
I didn't really, just because it wasn't my name, I didn't pick up on that.
On page 3, there was a little
Page
one.
3? That's a name.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
page 3, where Evelyn, at the bottom, it said the old beach field, and I think it was leach field.
Oh, beach, field, should be leach.
It should be leach.
Beach.
And then on page 5, I think, it was, it was just, they used, Patty said, she said, it's not a big deal there. Take out that extra she. And then, I think on page 9,
Extras, sheet.
it said, Gina, then they caught it, and this, cut it, we're talking about the budget, and it said we caught it instead of cut it. It
Cut
sounded
it.
like we were doing something bad.
What page is that one?
That's on 9,
Gene Walker.
it's just,
It's your accent, just the
Page
accent.
You know what I'm
9, cut it,
oh.
got it, okay.
And I don't know, David did you have other ones, David?
Yeah, well, first of all, the Newman appears twice on page 5. He appears on page 8. And
Oh, I see, yeah,
on page 10.
Do a seek and destroy.
Newman.
Yeah. Also on page 5, Newman was talking about drum lines, but I think he really meant drum ones.
Drawings. Okay.
Newman.
And let's see, what else was there? Oh, this time it was Neiman instead of Newman. On page 11, it says they had the chance to capture that back in Conservancy instead. That just doesn't,
Do you want to strike it out?
to capture, well, they have the chance to conserve the land instead, not,
Chance
just the
to,
way it says Conservancy instead. doesn't
chance to
make-
conserve.
Conserve.
Had the chance to conserve the fields instead,
Serve the fields instead,
yeah,
and that's on page 11.
that's on page 11.
Is it like, how many, can you tell how many paragraphs?
It's, the big paragraph on the bottom, that's me blabbing on.
Paragraph. Okay, any other?
Obviously, I talk way too much.
That's a lot.
Said that much.
Yeah. Is that
Well,
it?
these verbatim notes are weird, I think. They're like transcripts.
I know.
Okay. Okay, now,
Can we get an application from somebody who's interested in?
yeah, I was gonna have them accept the minutes and then,
Okay, I'm sorry.
okay, no, that's okay. So,
Go ahead.
do we have a vote on, are you finished, David?
I'm
You said-
finished, yeah. I'll
Do
show
you
up.
have everything?
So you made the motion with all the corrections.
No, with all the corrections?
Who's
Do
second?
we have a second on that?
Evelyn?
Evelyn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstaining.
Two
Oh, Amy,
abstentions.
he says.
Yep.
2 of you,
Yep,
okay?
okay.
And now we have a candidate for the commission, William Cunningham, would you like to?
Sure.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Hello.
You sure you want in?
I was just
after
gonna
that?
say, maybe you changed your mind.
Very interesting.
Maybe look very impressive right tonight. Oh,
Yeah, that's the first good sign, make it through the whole meeting. Not screaming for the door, so.
Still address it.
Yes, for sure. Thanks for the time. I know it's late. I've lived here for 2 years in New Hampshire. I moved up to Goffstown a year and a half ago from Bedford. I live up on Shirley Hill area, up on Stevens Drive. Of the 7 places I've lived as an adult, this is probably my most favorite. It's beautiful. I've lived Rhode Island, Virginia, North Carolina, California, Okinawa, a bunch of other places, and I intend to retire here someday. So I'd like a hand in preserving the beauty, the health, and the character of the town, and that's my interest in joining the commission. So that's my pitch. Happy to be here.
Is it Tom?
Billy.
Billy.
Or William is, but
What
Billy's
do you
fine.
prefer?
Billy.
Billy. What do you do for work professionally?
I'm still active military,
Oh.
so I'll be here for another year or so at least, and then I have some choices to make.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
So what you, here you would make a recommendation to, it's an alternate position that is open. You make a recommendation to the select board to appoint him, and it would be the select board that would officially appoint him.
Okay. So we need somebody to make a recommendation. Susan,
I recommend we
appointment?
Forward to the select board.
We have to, we can't appoint them, the selectmen appoint them. We
No,
To recommend.
we
Recommend.
recommend that he be Billy Cunningham, be appointed a member of the.
Alternate?
An alternate member of the Conservation Commission.
Okay, we have a second?
second.
Okay. Evelyn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
Welcome.
Now he's gotta go to the
Yeah,
selectmen
yeah,
first
yeah.
now, and then,
And now this will go to the selectmen, and then they,
Yeah.
I don't think there'll be a problem.
they will vote on it again.
Yeah, they usually whatever they.
They can do whatever they want, yeah.
One of the things you put in your email was,
Okay, should we close
you know,
the meeting?
interest
He's
in
talking.
stewardship. And that's the area where we really fall short.
Yeah.
We really don't do an adequate job of stewardship on this commission. We have a lot that we need to implement, particularly on, there are easements and conservation lands that the town owns that really, there should be a stewardship program. They should be inspected at least once every couple of years to keep the records. And
And if
so,
you like getting out and walking the land
Like
and seeing
getting
what
out, walking the
Goffstown's all
land.
about, that's a great way to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's an area we really could use a lot of help with.
I'm working with John Harvey a little bit over at Amherst Conservation Commission, ACC. They're starting a highest habitat steward program where they, and really, like I say, we're starting, it's him and I right now, kind of pioneering it, but the idea is to go out and find habitats, target those, and focus on them to either develop or prohibit, interaction with wildlife around there. So I was kind of interested in doing that in Goffstown. I applied there and started working with them before I came here. So I think that's kind of what you're talking about.
Okay.
Well,
Any other-
David's actually, he's been very responsible for acquiring most of the land that we have. And it's, 20 years at least, David, the land?
I guess it's about, 2003 is when I joined the
Could be at
commission.
least that.
Yeah. So when we started, and then he's just gotten very aggressive about, and Jean is also, actually was wonderful, an old school teacher, and so she knows a lot of the people in the community and kind of.
She's our
they-
secret weapon.
Yeah, that's what it is, and then they kind of approach her, and then she gets him, and then he's really great working with PLC and writing grants, and,
They contact me and I send them to David.
but it's been very successful.
It has,
Yeah.
it has.
And we're also
Wonderful
fortunate
land.
that the property owners and the people in Goffstown understand
That's,
and
they're the ones that get the real credit,
Yeah.
because they're the ones that make the decisions
Yeah.
that they want to preserve
Well,
in
that
the
was a lot.
future. give to the community.
But that was a lot of, on our part, advertising and propaganda and taking it to the town and on the ballot. But I also have to say, Collis Adams for years and years you sat with the DES and were very helpful in getting the prime wetlands so that we can now have all of our prime wetlands mapped. So I think we've been we look flaky, but actually we've been very active.
Speak for yourself, Evelyn. I heard the word old. There's nobody here that's old.
The other significant piece was.
Now we're flaky.
Now we're old and
Excuse me,
flaky.
Someone's talking over here.
Maybe we should
The other
end the
significant
meeting.
piece, I think, was the Wetlands and Surface Water Conservation District overlay. And there's zoning, so that was pretty significant too.
Then the
And the
zoning.
town voted on.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah.
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 So,
Does anyone make a motion to?
I thought we did.
Adjourn.
Adjourn.
Oh, adjourn. Oh,
Adjourn.
So somebody want to make a motion?
oh, sure.
Okay, Evelyn, second. Come on, Andy.
Yeah, I'll second
Okay.
that.
Oh, there
All
you
those in
go.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that,
Actually,
okay, close the recording.
Yeah,
What's that?
yeah, it's all being recorded, so we have to wait to.
Oh, yeah.